What is up, guys? My name is Lex. We are back here in beautiful, sunny, well, not so sunny South Florida. The last couple videos you guys watched, I was traveling in Texas, I was in Vegas, but I've been back here now for a little bit of time. And today, we are playing here at the Harrah Casino in Pompano Beach. It is going to be a 5-10-10 game, $3,000 max buy-in. It's going to get bigger as it goes. Hopefully we can run good. We will see. Let's get down to the table. Let's get to the action. Let's go. I sit down at the table and buy in for $3,000. This is my second time playing this reserved game over here at the Harrah. It's a great group of guys. It's a lot of fun, and the table is huge action. This first hand, the blinds are at 5-10-10. I've got ace-jack offsuit and the hijack are raised to $40. The cutoff player 3-bets me next to act to $125. The button calls $125. Small blind calls $125. And big blind calls $125. And the action's back over on me. I could call here with ace-jack offsuit. I could make a very nitty fold, or I could try to pounce on this potential dead money spot and try to put in a 4-bet. This could be a good spot to put in a 4-bet bluff. I've got the ace of hearts in my hand. I block some strong hands. The cutoff player has about $2,000 in his stack. The small blind, big blind, and button just cold called the 125, so neither of them should have a strong hand. I raise it up to like $1,800 here. And luckily for us, everybody folds. We take down over $300 here of dead money on our first hand. I was not clickbaiting in the title, guys. I end up playing a huge, massive pot by the end of this session. This table is wild. A ton of action in big pots. Make sure to stay tuned all the way to the end. Don't miss a single hand. We get dealt in a nice premium here on the button, pocket queens. There's two $10 calls. I raise it up to $100. Small blind calls 100, big blind calls 100, and now the straddle player re-raises me to $600. Well, this table is very aggressive. My first two hands, I've gotten 3-bet. Well, the under the gun player has around $3,000 in his stack. I slightly cover him. What should we do here with pocket queens? Should we call this $600 raise? Should we fold? Or should we just jam it all in? All of it. All in? You might make that vlog. I decide to just rip my entire stack in there. It is a huge jam here. It's $3,000, which is really about 300 big blinds, but I'm facing a $600 bet from my opponent, and I'm not really going to know where I'm at post-flop. What if I call and there's a jack or a 10? He could have possibly hit a set. What happens if an ace or a king comes out? I'm just not going to know where I'm at, so I feel like the easiest play here is to just jam it all in, close my eyes, hope he doesn't have aces or kings, back over to the straddler who doesn't think for too long, and eventually folds, and we take down another pot. Fast forward now where there's a call for $10, a cutoff raise to 50, a small blind call 50, and I've got 6-7 suited here in the big blind. Well, 6-7 suited is not really a hand you want to play multi-way out of position. I could fold here pre-flop, or I could put an aggressive 3-bet. I don't want to just 3-bet aces, kings, and queens. I want to bring action to this game, so I bump it up to $250. The limper makes to call, and the cutoff makes to call, and the small blind folds. So 3 ways. 3-bet pot, ace high board, 2 clubs, flopping a flush draw. I would say this is one of the better flops you can get when you 3-bet 6-7 of clubs. I continue for a $300 c-bet here. The limper folds, but the cutoff makes to call. So now we're heads up out of position to a turn card that pairs the board. It's another 4. Now if he had a king high hand or a queen high hand that he floated me with here on the flop, or a smaller pocket pair to the ace, if I put out one more bet here, definitely think he'll be folding those hands. If he does have a hand like ace-jack or ace-queen, we are not going to get him to fold this hand. But I feel like with 7 high, I just got a double barrel, so I do make it $575, praying he doesn't have a strong hand and he lets his hand go, which he does, and we take this one down.
Straight left. You want the charger? there a charger that I use?
In this hand, the hijack player makes it $75. There's a couple calls, and I complete here in the straddle with Jack 4 suited. Almost the Robbie hand, but this one is suited, so it's just a little bit better. We go 4 ways to a Jack 6-6 board, 2 hearts. I decide to lead out on this flop, thinking I'm most likely going to be having the best hand, and I don't want to allow the action to check all the way through. I make it 175. Hijack player calls 175 and the other players fold. So heads up now to the 5 of clubs on the turn. I think a lot of the time my opponent's going to have a flush draw, possibly a hand like pocket 8s or 9s or 10s. So I don't want to check and allow him to get a free card here. I make it $275 and the hijack player calls again. Well, I'm going to be shutting this one down, and on the deuce of diamonds on the river, I slow down and check. My opponent checks behind. I show the Jack 4 for top pair, and he shows Ace 8 of hearts for a missed flush draw, and we win this one. Everything is going our way so far. We bluffed pre-flop. We went all in with pocket queens. We 3-bet light, and now our top pair held up, and we have over a $6,000 stack now after playing just a couple hours. The straddle is on now. The action at this table is picking up. A couple players are raising huge pre-flop. I've been card dead for a while, but that changes when I peel back queens now in the big blind. There's a $25 straddle, a raise to $200 from an early position player. A middle position player calls 200. A hijack player calls 200. And I think to myself, what 3-bet size do I want to use here with pocket queens, until the big blind player who's sitting to my right with around $3,500 in his stack 3-bets to $1,025. Wow, this is pretty crazy. There's a straddle, a raise to 200, 2 calls for 200, and a 3-bet to $1,025. I've got over $6,000 in my stack. The initial raiser has around $3,000 or $4,000. The big blind player who squeezed has around $3,500 in his stack. Can I fold here with pocket queens? Never. Not in this game. Could I call? Well, I don't really want to go multi-way with queens. I think that just leaves one option.
Want to work for a company, this and that. He goes, I'm interested.
After going all in for my $6,000, the initial raiser for $200 folds. The other 2 players fold, but the big blind player who squeezed makes a pretty quick call. So I think it's definitely possible he could have aces or kings, maybe jacks we're ahead of, or ace king. He has to run out the board twice, and in this game, I'll do whatever my opponent wants to do. So we decide 2 boards here, over $7,000 in the middle. I've got no idea if I'm ahead or behind, but the first board comes out king high. It's terrible if he's got pocket kings or ace king. And the second board comes out king high with a jack in it. We're losing to jacks and ace king. I show my queens and he shows pocket jacks. Wow, what a sick spot to be in. Unfortunate for us, he hits the jack on the second run out, or we could have scooped over a $7,000 pot. But I'll take a chop pot in this situation. It could have been worse. He could have had ace king or aces or kings. We end up winning around $300 here of dead money. Over the next hour or so, I end up playing a lot of hands, but they're not too notable. I just basically lose $200 or $300 each hand. At one point, I was up over $4,000 in this session, but now I'm slowly losing my profit. I'm up now probably around $3,000. We're also drinking at the table. There's a couple players buying rounds, so I get myself a red glass of wine here. This particular player I'm going to play this pot with up next is the same player that I'm going to play a huge pot with after this hand. He's drinking wine with me, and as the wine is flowing, his play is getting a little bit crazier. Well, in this hand, I've got Queen 10 offsuit. I raised to $50. There's 3 calls. We go 4 ways to a Jack 9 4 2-heart board. I flop an open-ended straight draw, and the big blind player who's drinking wine with me makes it $100. I call. Turn card, we're heads up, pairing the board. It's a 9. Big blind leads again for $200. Well, can't be folding an open-ended straight draw here. I'm pretty sure he has a jack, and we miss everything on the river when it comes out the 5 of hearts. Well, I could check back my queen high, or I could try to bluff my opponent off a jack. I make it $800 here on the river. hoping he'll think I have a flush and he'll fold out a jack hand. I don't think he's got a full house or a 9, and he does fold jack 7 suited. Luckily for us, we get this bluff through. I do show him my hand as a bluff, trying to have a fun game here, and we end up taking down the small pot, but that's nothing compared to this huge pot we end up playing next. The main opponent in this hand is the player from last hand. He is crushing the table so far and also crushing the drinks. He probably has over a $10,000 stack. In this hand, I raise ace-king suited to $50. There's 2 calls. The action player 3-bets me in the cutoff to $350. Small blind cold calls $350. With ace-king suited, a 4-bet is mandatory here. So I bump it up to $1,250. Back over to the cutoff, who covers me over a $10,000 stack. I have a $6,000 stack, and he snap calls this $1,250 bet. Well, the small blind folds, and we end up going heads up here, out of position, 4-bet pot, ace-king of spades, and the flop comes out pretty great for our hand. King, 3, 4, 2 clubs, giving me top pair, top kicker. I continue for a $700 bet, and my opponent makes a very quick call. This pot is brewing over $4,000 in the middle, and the turn card's the 8 of clubs. Now bringing in 3 clubs on the board. The front door flush gets there. I've got $4,000 in my stack. The pot's $4,000. It's a 4-bet pot. I've got only one single pair up against a crazy action player. What should I do? Should I check? Should I bet? Should I go all in? I decide to put a little pot control in here and check over to the cutoff, who now bets out $2,000. Wow, that is a big bet for this game. $2,000. I only have $4,000 left. I don't feel like he's bluffing here very often, but what am I going to do? I've got ace-king, top pair, top kicker. I don't think I could ever fold in this situation. So given the fact that I only have $4,000 left against this player, I just jam my entire stack in there. $4,000 in the middle, praying he doesn't have a flush. Once I go all in, he asks for a count, which is great news. If he did have a flush or a set or 2 pair, I think he'd make a very, very quick call, given the fact that he's thinking about this for a while. For only $2,000 more, that should mean we have the best hand. I don't think he's nit rolling me here with a set or a flush. He would make a very quick call with that hand. So now we are rooting for a call. However, if he calls, he's probably going to have a pair and a flush draw, or maybe a straight draw and a flush draw, or a hand like king queen with the queen of clubs. Either way, this is going to be a massive, massive pot. As he is in the tank here, the realization comes to me that if he calls here and the river card's bad for me, I could end up losing $6,000 in one single hand. I normally play 5-10 with a $2,500 buy-in, so losing $6,000 in one single hand is very rough. This pot, if my opponent calls, will be 1,200 big blinds, which is just a massive pot. Well, after thinking for over 2 minutes, my opponent puts in the call. He only runs out the board one time, praying for a brick on the river, and it's the 10 of spades. I show ace-king for top pair, top kicker, and my opponent mucks, and we end up winning a massive $12,000 pot here. My opponent did end up making the call with a pair and flush draw. He was semi-bluffing on the turn. He ended up calling it off there. We had to fade the trip, so the 2 pair and the club, and we did, running out the board one time. Poker is just such a sick game. It all comes down to just 1 or 2 big pots. I mean, this pot can make your day, your week, or even your month. I don't normally play $12,000 pots, so for this one to go my way is very, very nice. Now, after playing a couple hours, I have over a $12,000 stack, and I'm in the game for $3,000. So, if my math is correct, that's around a $9,000 profit so far on this session. The table gets another round of drinks, so I'm enjoying another glass of red wine and also raising it up here with King Jack offsuit to $100 over a straddle. There's a call from the hijack, a call from the button, and a call from the big blind. So we're four ways here with King Jack to a king high board. Well, when you make top pair and there's a bunch of people in the hand and the pot's pretty big, the best thing to do is just bet. So that's what I do. I make it $150. I get a call from the hijack player and a call from the button, but the big blind folds. So now we're down to 3 players, and the turn card is the Jack of Diamonds, giving me 2 pair. This card improves me, but it could also potentially improve my opponents. Given the fact that I got 2 calls on the flop, I'm multi-way out of position. I decide to check, and now the hijack player very quickly bets $900. The button folds, and I look over at the hijack player who only has $200 left. With 2 pair here, I feel like he could be betting a lot of worse hands. He could have a pair plus flush draw. He could have a hand like King 10. He could have King Jack as well. He could also have Queen Jack. I feel like in this situation, I'm just never going to be folding. He only has $200 behind. So I decided to just go all in, and he makes a very quick snap call. Rivers to 6 of hearts, and we get the bad news when he shows ace 10 for the nut straight, and we end up losing around $1,200 on the turn and river in this hand, which ends up being our last hand of the night. After this, the table ends up breaking, and I end up calling it a night. What a fun, crazy game. A great group of guys. I ran very well tonight. I didn't have to make too many tough decisions. All my bluffs got through, and I went over a $12,000 pot with a single pair. I ended up profiting $6,800 on this session. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Please like and subscribe, and until next time, I'll see ya.